Well, hello, and welcome to the Hallway Podcast. I am your host, Berilyn Mangan, and I am so glad you are with us today. The hallway is the space between what was and what will be. It is the place between leaving and entering. And historically, it has been a place that we have been taught to fear and to rush through. We are hoping to change that. We are here to come together, to tell our stories, to share our space, and to find ways to make a home in the hallway for as long as we are here. I'm grateful to share today's episode with you. Let's get started. Welcome back to the hallway. I'm Berilyn Mangan. I am back today with my dear friend Ashley Boyd, coming at you live from Nashville, Tennessee. You want to say?
Hi,
There we
guys.
go.
Yep. Good to be here again.
We are very glad that Ashley is back, and you all have been so sweet. Emails and conversations around what it meant to you and how it connected with your heart to hear the things that she had to say about play. That's been really sweet. I also wanted to give a little update on Aline because some of you have been asking about her. She is in LA, outside of LA, in LA, around LA. I don't understand LA. So she is in the vicinity of LA. They are doing okay. Their hallway season has been longer and wider than they would have hoped. So she will be back. We've talked about and how to get back and record some together. So she'll be back in the spring. She loves to do this with me. I love to do it with her. So she will be back. And until then, I'm going to keep bringing in other people that I love. And we'll do that probably after she comes back too. But thank y'all for asking about her. Yeah, she'll be back in the spring and she can kind of share her story with you then. I brought Ashley back today, though, because I wanted to talk a little bit about worth. For those of you that are on my email, or for those of you who are on Instagram, you know that I'm doing this little thing I came up with 4 years ago called Know Your Worth November. And I feel like Ashley is one of those people who reflects worth to the people around her really, what's the word I'm looking for? Groundedly and intentionally and kind of fully. Like I said last time, when you're around Ashley, you feel like you're worth her time and her attention and her hugs. So I just wanted to have a conversation about worth. And it feels important to do it now with so much going on in the world. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this started, and then we're going to talk a little bit about worth, and I'm going to go kind of nutshell version. When we moved to Scotland, I experienced a groundedness into my own worth that I had not experienced before. And I'd done a lot of work at that point, both in my faith life and in really deep therapy for a couple of years. So I'd done a lot of work. And so to come to a place and experience what I said to Ash earlier was like, it's like when you're landing in a plane, you know, that moment where like you like come down hard on your seat and you like feel your seat. That's what it felt like to me to be like, oh, there's my worth. And so I just wanted to have an opportunity to encourage people, hopefully maybe inspire people and give people some practical ideas of how to know the truth of their own worth and reflect that into the world around them. And for me, we talked a little bit about this earlier, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about it. It feels different than like kindness paying it forward, which I love that too. Like, let's keep doing as much of that as possible. But there's a difference between like telling somebody like, I want to pay for your coffee, and like being present with them and seeing them and like feeling from you, like you have worth and I care that you are here on this planet and that you're in my day. Like it just feels like a depth difference. Maybe that's a good way to put it. Does that feel like a good way to put it?
hmm Yeah, because, you know, there are kind acts of service that we can do, which are lovely. But I think what we're talking about is not what we do for another, but how we honor just their presence. Just the fact that you are alive and showing up as yourself in this time, in this space, how that matters.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a really beautiful way to put it. It's not necessarily what we're doing for them, but the depth of how we see them and are present with them and reflect to them.
mhm.
Yeah. So the thing I said to Ashley is that this thing feels really important to me. And to be really honest, I kind of do it every year. I was like gung ho about it for like 2 years. And what typically happens is I get some like really sweet conversations, but a lot of crickets. It feels like I mean, there was some movie with Will Ferrell where he's like, I'm going streaking. Come on, everybody. And then it's just him running by himself naked down a road.
That's old
Yeah,
school.
so that's me.
That's the movie. Mhm, mhm. I'm streaking with you. Let's go
Thank
streaking.
you, Ashley, for not making me go on my own.
It may just be the two of us running naked, but we're doing it.
Oh, I wouldn't put it past us to actually do that either.
You're
So I just this year wanted to have a conversation and put it because I have the podcast to put it out there and say, like, this is why I think this matters. And this is what I would encourage you to think about for yourself and to do. Ashley, you talked a little bit earlier about like the difference between like worth and esteem. Can you talk a little bit about like from your perspective, like here's what this is and why it matters?
Mhm. Yeah, I was reading something this week about self-esteem and how it's so correlated to like we can build up or change our self-esteem to some degree based on achievements, um, you know, what we accomplish. It's very how are we producing? How are we improving? Whereas our worth is just based on who we are. It doesn't necessarily have a connection to what we do.
Yeah.
And so, um, for me, I spend quite a bit of time being curious with myself. Like, how do I feel about this? How is this impacting me? What are the things that make me feel alive? What are the things that make me feel exhausted? And being curious with myself and this has taken a lot of time. Again, Marilyn said she's done a lot of work. I've spent a lot of time doing my own work and realizing that I actually am worth connecting with. I am worth connecting with
Yeah.
myself. And so when I can be curious with myself about how I'm experiencing the world, then I can show up. And this is what I think when we talk about acknowledging another person's worth is the way that you experience this world, the way that you are in this world matters to me. And I sure as heck hope it matters to you.
Yep. Mm.
The thing that I think we're missing oftentimes is we're not slowing down enough to put our phones down, to disconnect from whatever distracts us from that, to look into the eyes of the person across from us and to actually be present and connected. Even doing that communicates, you matter to me.
Yeah.
You matter to me. I'm curious about, you know, how's your day? But not asking because you just want to hear fine. Like, really, how are you?
Mhm.
Um, we, I think what's happened to a large degree is we haven't slowed down enough to make eye contact and really, really connect with the person across from us. As simple as
Yeah.
that.
Two things come up for me around that. Um, well, three. One is that you just noted like both you and I have a kind of deep groundedness into our own worth, and we did a lot of work to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we talked about a little bit earlier is sometimes people think they have a groundedness into their own worth until you look in some cupboards internally. So I would just say if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I really do, like just check into like, how do you treat your precious body? What
Yeah.
kind of people do you date or are friends with? Um,
Can you say no?
yeah, good one. Do you enjoy the like peacefulness of your own company? So I think I would just say like start there. Like start with your own curiosity, your own precious heart, soul, mind. Start there. The second thing it brought up for me is the idea of we talked in a different, Al and I talked in a different episode about polyvagal theory. And so one of the things that brought up for me is like, when we're talking about eye contact and we're talking about slowing down and actually being present with each other, there are these gorgeous things called mirror neurons. And a lot of times in the work that you and I do, what we're really offering to someone else through mirror neurons is just like a safe, grounded system that cares deeply for them and wants deeply for healing for them. I mean, we have a lot of other skills too, but that's like the groundedness of what we do, is that through eye contact, even virtually, our neurons are telling their neurons, you matter, I'm here, I'm not leaving, you're safe, and I'm going to walk through this with you to the best of my ability. So when you just talk about like eye contact, like that, it really does matter, especially with your kids, which I guess then we could go like inner kiddos too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's not just there is the taking the things out of our life. I understand, like, we're going to need to use our phone. We're going to need to use our computer. There's times that we sit in front of the TV and check out because we've had a hard day. But there's also ways in which we can take distractions out for periods of time when we are sitting across from somebody, even somebody that we don't know very well. And then if we can get curious and just ask certain questions, there's something about somebody wanting to know about us that communicates, oh gosh, I'm worth it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worth. And the beauty of, and I understand that some of this is just part of how I'm designed, but if I talk to somebody long enough, I have eyes to see certain things about them that make them so beautiful.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the way that they communicate is so unique and a part of who they are. The way their brain thinks or the things they're interested in are so unique to who they are. And being able to then, so if I can see you and I can be curious about you, then I can even call out in you things that are so very unique to you. And isn't that just what we long for?
Yeah.
I mean, as humans, it's like, I want you to see me. I want you to tell me what's true about me. And we could do that with somebody across the counter at a coffee shop.
Yeah. Just like, I mean, just even thinking about that, there are people that I can think of. I'll give you an example. There is a guy here at one of our grocery stores is called M&S. There's a guy here whose name is Ish. And I really think that they need to pay him to be the unofficial mayor of St. Andrews and just pay him to walk around town and like talk to everybody. He has the best laugh on the planet. And he's so kind and he makes so much eye contact. So he found out we were going to this little aisle called Iona over the summer with my mom. And he was like, bring me back a postcard. So we brought him back postcards and we dropped them off for him. When I saw him later, I think he was being funny, but he's like so lovely and so kind. I just wanted to do something that like let him know. So we brought him back postcards. But I wanted him to know that because he's so good at just bringing light and laughter and joy to a grocery store checkout. So yeah, I mean, you can just do that. Like he makes me like the town I'm living in more than I already love it. Yeah.
Your presence, you being alive at this time, in this place, in this store matters to me. And I want you to know that.
The other thing you said, I'm going to go to the third thing in a minute, but the other thing you said that you were like, you know, when I know somebody's like when I'm looking at somebody and hearing them, I see and I can call out things that are so unique to them. The thing that I've said is like typically, because I don't, you know, I've got my own stuff. I don't like everybody. I mean, bless me. Like I got stuff still to work on. But for me, when I get stuck in my own stuff and I'm being blech on the inside, the more I know somebody's story, it is so much harder for me to do that. So the more I hear them ask questions, unless they really do suck, which is very rare, to be honest.
Right.
the more that I know them and I hear their story, I'm like, oh, there it is. But like you said, I've got to slow down and get past my own crap to hear their story and be present with them.
Mm-hmm. To have empathy and compassion. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
third one that I was going to say is, I talk about this a lot, is like, in order to reflect well, in order to know the depth of your own worth, I think that it's part of like, you've got to be a safe person. Like, how can you be safe for the stories of others? So how would you answer that? Like, how can we be safe for the presence and the stories of others to reflect well? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Well, yeah. No, I think it's great. I think that's a great question, and I think that it is worth, obviously attempting to answer here, but for all of us to sit and really reflect
Mm,
on. We may need to meditate on that because I can tell you what my response would be for me off the cuff, but I mean, this is some deep stuff here. Um, I need to know that I don't have an agenda.
mm,
So when I'm curious, I'm not thinking about the feedback I'm going to give, the advice I'm going to give, the ways in which I might do it better or worse. So there's not a comparison component. So I don't have an agenda. And if I can, the best part of me, which does not always show up, let me just be honest, especially with people that I love. Like a lot of times I do have an agenda because I want something for them so badly that I feel like I have some sort of control over. But if I'm really at the core of me showing up as the best version of myself, it's that the thing that I know I can show up with that matters the most is just my
mm,
presence. So when I'm curious, I'm not coming in with, when they're talking, I'm not thinking about some really smart feedback. I'm just present and able to have the ability to say, God, I hear you. Man, that sounds hard.
yeah.
Or that's, you know, so safety for me is I need to know my own story and parts that trigger me.
Mhm,
I need to know, um, do I have an agenda here? And can I just show up with my presence and compassion and empathy? Um, but that's a great question. What about you?
I think the way you said, I'm gonna try to get that you said, like, "I hear you, and that sounds really hard." There is a moment there, I think, once that's said, if it's said really with presence and, like, you're there's a moment of pain that comes after that, that's just like the pain sits between you and is, like, palpable, and I
Mhm,
think it's really hard to hold.
mhm.
And I think that's what often that I'm wanting so much is someone to just hold that with me for a moment. I think too, the thing that I use a lot in my work with clients and my relationships with myself is like old school, what I'm hearing you say is because I think there's so much to be said for just making sure we're on the same page. Because again, we move so quickly. And
Yeah,
so there's just that moment of saying, "Hey, let me just make sure I'm hearing you. This is what I'm hearing you say." And I think there's also something really powerful too for me when someone else repeats back to me, I hear someone else say, and sometimes it's almost the exact same words of what I've said, but it feels so validating for somebody to be like, "This is what I'm hearing you say." And then for them to say, "Man, that's heavy," or "That's rough," or "I hate this," or "I love you and that's really hard."
mhm,
Um, that reflection piece, I think we move through it so quickly, me included. I laughed the other day. I was messaging with one of my precious friends over here, and she's American as well. And one of the things she misses is like, I think it's Spindrift. Do you have Spindrift?
mhm.
She was like, that was like
Yep.
her afternoon, like treat for herself. Like kids come home from school. She's trying to like, move from like professional back to mom, kind of go in and out. She was like, that was my treat. And I was like, I'm really sorry. That sounds really hard. And then like I immediately Google how to get Spindrift in the UK. And I send her a link over text that was like, I never try to fix my problems for my friends, in quotation marks. And then it's like, immediately Google Spindrift. And then I just send her the link. So I think there's some beauty too to coming alongside and being like, let me help you try to figure things out. And I think a
Yes.
great question too, if you get that moment of deep connection, you feel seen, heard, and the pain is shared.
Yeah.
I skip over this question in my sessions sometimes, and I feel it afterwards that I've done it, and I hate it so much. But the thing that I think is so good after that is to be like, I want to help you think of a solution. If that's helpful, why don't you tell me all the things you've already tried?
Mm.
Because often, it's like, I'm not feeling well. And, every doctor's like, are you drinking enough water? You're like, I'm going to blow up your office.
That's right. Yeah. With parenting,
Yeah.
you hear when you just want to talk about how you had a hard parenting day and someone's like, have you ever thought about coming up with some reasonable consequences?
No. Mm-mm.
Like, I want to say some really bad things right now, but I know I probably shouldn't. But yeah, that's a great question.
And it may be another way for each of us to like share the burden too, of be like, sometimes I just want to sit down with somebody and be like, here are the 15 things that have been hard. And for somebody to be like, that is really hard.
Mhm.
And for them to feel like they can't fix it either.
And I'm also aware that it's not an accident that we have entered into this profession and that we have the ability to hold immense amount of pain in people's stories for long periods of time.
Mhm.
And so I know that that is some of just the way that we're designed. And not everybody can do that for 5 hours a
Right.
day like we do. But to be able to at least acknowledge that's hard
Mhm.
or that's exciting because it's not always the hard parts of our story, but even being able to celebrate somebody, like that's a big deal. Oh man, that's so
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful point. And again, talking about being a safe person, like it is a beautiful person that can hold their own grief and celebrate with someone they love and be able to do both.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. What in your work with people over the last, I don't know, how many years have you been doing this?
I don't know, somewhere between 15 and
Yeah, let's
20.
go with 20. I think that is more accurate. Um, by the way, I didn't say this earlier, and I'm going to side note for a second. I'm not going to take it out of the episode. I saw a picture of us. It came up in like this happened however many years ago from a wedding we went to together. In probably 2011, 2012. And I was like, we look so rested.
Yeah, who are those children?
We looked adorable, PS. And it was a precious picture, and I love it so much. But I was like, man, we look young and rested.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a long, long season in the hallway.
I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about before I said that?
You said,
Your work with clients thus far.
yes.
If we wanted to say to people like, all right, so get curious about your own worth. Find the places where that is caught up for you and work those out so that you can really live from the place of, you said it so beautifully earlier and we weren't recording about like, you're not too much. You're not, can you go through kind of that little list again of like what people,
Sure. Yeah, we were having a conversation about like what attacks our worth. And I said, gosh, if we're looking at our stories, typically those negative messages started showing up early in our stories, whether they were told to us, verbally or through nonverbal communication, that we're not enough, we're not smart enough, pretty enough, creative enough, or we're too much. You have too big of feelings, too many needs. And so we either are hustling for our worth, or we're trying to diminish or get smaller because we were told we were too much. And the truth is, like, that's just not true. Like, who we are, at the core of who we are, is exactly who we're meant to be. And yeah, go
Well,
for it.
the thing I was going to say is the thing that for me in my own work that got really clear is I am absolutely too much and not enough. So I think that's the thing, is that because what comes after that, it is I'm too much or I'm not enough. And therefore I'm not worthy of being loved. I'm not worthy of being seen. I'm not worthy of being known. I just need to keep like presenting this thing that I'm supposed to be instead. But when you get to the point where you're like, everyone is too much and not enough because we're all human, it's just like you just need to take up the space that you were created to take up. And in the places where I am too much, learn as an adult how to like regulate or just be like, that was a human day. I had a conversation yesterday. It's been a long week. I had a conversation. No, it wasn't yesterday. It was the day before. I was so awkward. I walked away from that thing being like, do I just text that person and be like, hey, we don't know each other very well, but I'm real sorry. Like that was just like 14 different kinds of awkward. Cause I was in my head. I'd had a hard, like, I just was like, I wasn't totally there. And the whole thing, I
Mhm.
mean, I'm sure they left and they were like, okay, okay, okay.
What just
Right.
happened? Huh.
So it was one of those moments where I was too much and like, okay,
Right.
like I am human.
And you have permission.
Right.
Yes.
So there's going to be times as an adult where you're just like, and then there are times where, like, let's say it kept happening with a certain friend and I realized I was activated or something, then to take responsibility for that and say, I'm getting big because of this. It's mine to navigate. I'm really sorry. But that's just me taking up my actual space and not allowing too much or not enough to be narratives that control me, but just things that we navigate in the reality of being human.
Yeah. Mm.
But that's the power. Like you take the power of it away, and then you're just like, okay, today was a big
Right.
day. Barrelin was big. Barrelin was big today.
Welcome to the human
Right?
experience. Like, you have a seat at the table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody's awkward.
Yeah. Yes.
So so what we're saying is like do your own work in your own story and get curious whether that's just an extension of what you've already done, or if it's a beginning for you, whatever that is. Like learn how to take up your own precious space.
Mhm.
But the thing that goes from there is we talked about this earlier, and so I want to talk about this just a little bit. We are meant for each other. Like we need each other. um so also take that precious worth you've grounded into and like turn your eyes outward and allow that to serve and love and give within boundaries to the people that you are connected to.
Yeah. Show up with the truth of that in your world and acknowledge the truth of it in the others who are in your world. Like, we talked about, I play pickleball, and it's been a rough couple of weeks. And there's a part of me that was like, maybe I just won't show up because I'm not sure that I'm in a place where I can just be in the general population
Mm-hmm.
and trust
Mm-hmm.
myself. But then I was like, you know what? I know who I play with, and I get to show up exactly who I am, and that's okay. And one of the people that I play with, is what she brings to this world is she is one of the funniest human beings I've ever been around. She is, and she just is that way. And so I got to show up in my humanity, and within a very short period of time, her just being who she is, I almost pee in my pants every time I'm around her, for real. And it was one of those, again, laughing so hard, belly laugh bent over, you know, just cracking up. And I was able to say to her, I needed you
Yeah.
today. And that communicates her
Yeah.
worth. Like, I really needed you today. And I almost chose not to show up, and that would have been okay too. But I can show up in my humanity and my messiness, and you can show up with you. And there's something that about me being in your presence that I needed.
Mhm. Man, bless the people that make us laugh, right?
Mm.
I think I've said this earlier, but there's a Indigo Girls line from their live album that says, "You have to laugh because you'd cry your eyes out if you didn't."
Mhm.
I mean, there are just times that there is just so much healing and the ability to just be present together and laugh.
Yeah.
I don't know quite how to end this well. I tend to feel that way about things like this because it feels like it's not something that's like bowable. Like, how do you wrap this up with a bow? You know what I mean?
Well, and it's because it's a
Yeah.
conversation. It's like I said, when you asked that question, I said, I'm going to tell you what's coming up right now, but I'm going to need to sit with that and really reflect on it, maybe meditate on it. And so, yeah, there's not a wrap it up in a bow. There's more thought to be had.
Yeah. I think as we are navigating so many things in the world that are big and, from my perspective, scary, and I mean, I'm not going to list them all here, but there are just so many things in the world that affect finances and our daily life. And as we're coming up on a season, I always think about, probably because we work with clients, about what it's like to navigate, like especially if you're American, the Thanksgiving through New Year's kind of season, and how lonely that can be. I would just kind of say, and I would just ask you to kind of think about, like, what would you say to people? What I would kind of say is, you have deep innate worth. You came to this planet with it. And there have been a lot of things in your story that have attempted to tell you that it is not true. Those things are big fat liars. You have innate worth. It means that, like, you are loved and seen just as you are. And all of us also have crap. Like, that's a part of the conversation, right? Like, we also have crap. And you have deep worth, and you are worthy of being loved, seen, known, and being present with your own crap to keep moving toward healing. And so that is true, and do your work to find the places where that has been told that it's not true. And then do the well and good work of not keeping that to yourself, not putting that light under a bushel, so to speak, but to do the work to reflect it into the world around you, maybe in just the simple ways of slowing down enough to see the people that are in your world often. And nobody's going to be able to do that all the time. And to reflect to them in small ways and big ways. I see you. I'm grateful. Just like you said about your friend, like, I needed the beauty of your humor and your joy today. Sometimes it is a sacrifice to serve, to give, to love. And I think as we've gotten more individualistic, we downplay the need that the world has for that. And the reason we do our work, the reason we ground, the reason we know our own worth is to then reflect it and serve and give. Not to the point where we're so burned out that we don't know who we are anymore. But there is beauty in sacrifice. Not martyrdom, just like well and good sacrifice of my time and attention to the precious soul across from me.
Mhm. And you are worth surrounding yourself with people who care enough about you to give you that time and attention as well.
And if you feel like that's hard to find those people, me too. Like it takes time. We get over time, we move, we get separated from those that are those grounded places for us. And then when you move into new places, it takes time. So keep searching though. I was just telling Ashley, like, I think it takes about 3 years to settle into a new place. And for us, the relationships, I feel like they're starting to really catch here. And we've been here 4 years, but a year of that was COVID. And so it feels that way to me still. It just feels like after about 3 years, you start to feel like your roots grow. And if you've experienced a big amount of like work in your internal world and you're having to kind of shift the kind of people you spend time with, that's going to take time too. So I think because I can hear some of my clients in my head being like, I've tried. It's hard. And I'm like, it is. And you are worth continuing to look because there are people in the world that really think like you or want to be around you and it just takes time to find each other.
Yeah, you're worth continuing to pursue that.
So as we head into the holidays in a world that feels contentious right now, I just would encourage us all to do the radical act of reflecting worth into the world and see if it changes things. It does for me internally when I do it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that I've missed that you want to add?
I don't think so. I was just thinking, when we talk about being interconnected, we're not just interconnected with each other. There's ways that we can move about the world where we have eyes to see how we're interconnected with nature too,
Yeah.
with the world around us, and that this is just my own worldview, but when I connect with nature, I am able to sink deeper into my worth because I realize like this is for me.
Mm.
This beauty, this is for me. And whatever it is that when your eyes are gazed upon it, you go, oh, this is good. This is for me. That may be specific people. It may be your
Mm-hmm.
animal,
Yeah.
honestly. Like my dog, when I am with my dogs, I'm like, oh, this is so good. This is for
Mm-hmm.
me. So there are ways that it's almost like taking off an old pair of glasses and putting on a new prescription where you all of a sudden can see a little more clearly. That I would just encourage all of us to have eyes to also see the places in our life that are beautiful and that are life-giving, and that is for us and we are worth tapping into that.
And that for me, that's what happened. That's what Scotland has done for me. It's the connection to the groundedness of nature in a way that is just like, wow. And when you were saying that and talking about your dogs too, just thinking about, all the different types of animal therapy that is just so good for co-regulation. And so if thinking about like, if you have deep, old, big trauma and people are scary, like start with nature and animals. Like, not
Yep.
like skunks or anything, but like, you know, golden retrievers and horses, you know?
No poisonous
Yes, not
snakes.
that, but like trees and moss and
Yeah.
no industrial noise and a good
Yeah.
cat or dog.
Yes.
We hope that today you feel the depth of your own worth and the truth of your own just belovedness. And may that feel either right now or over the next days, weeks, and months slowly more real to you. And may you find places to absorb and reflect that in ways that are just uniquely yours. Thanks for coming back.
Mm. I feel honored to be on this,
Well,
to be having this conversation with you.
I love you, friend.
I love
And
you.
we are grateful for y'all. So go in peace.
Mhm.